from Cottage Goods again. And you caught me just at the end of canning my grape jelly. So I will go back and show you all exactly how I did it. But right now I'm filling the jars. And the jars have all been washed in hot water. I usually put them in the top of the dishwasher. I fill the jars with a ladle and a little funnel here. And I just pour the hot jelly after it's ready to go, and I've skimmed off the foam, right into the jars. And I always make a test jar, which is what this jar is that I'm making right now, so I can see how the jelly has firmed up. Because if it hasn't, I have some options to take it apart and do something different. But so far this is looking absolutely fantastic. The jars have to be hot. I wash them in the dishwasher, and then I put them in a container with boiling water, which is where I have the lids, until I'm ready to pour it into the jar. You fill it 1/8 to 1/4 inch from the top. Wipe off the lid. Here's the little canning ring and the lid. Make sure the rim of the jar is clean. And then screw it on tight, not over tight, and flip it upside down. Now, why am I doing this? Because I'm just making jelly. I'm not canning fruits or vegetables or anything. If I can get the jars to seal this way, then I don't have to do a boiling water bath. If in about half an hour or the next 15 minutes, this magic button isn't pushed down, that means I'm going to have to put them in a boiling water bath to get to that to seal. And this is my test jar. So let's go back to the beginning and talk about where I started. The first thing I have to do before I do that is there's a little bit left in this pan, and I'm going to put it into this jar. And this is probably what we're going to have on that bread that I made. So I'm going to set that off to the side and go back to the beginning. Where did I start? Where did I leave off? Well, let's see. Last week we cooked down the grapes, and the grapes cooked down in the pan at least 3/4 of the way. I put the juice in this container and put it in the refrigerator until I'm ready to use it. Now I'm ready to use it, and you can see if you look closely, there's some little crystals forming in here. So before you put this into jelly, I need to strain it. So this is a cheesecloth bag. I've used it many times. It happens to be an old rice bag in this funnel strainer, which I have going into a cup, a measuring cup, because the juice has to be precisely measured. The reason a lot of people have a difficulty with jams and jellies is you're not precisely measuring it. Now look at all that residue left in the bottom. I don't want any of that in my jelly. So I can have up to 5 cups of liquid here. And you can push this down in the bag. I don't do that. I just let that juice seep all out on its own. Because if you squish it, or you could maybe give it a gentle squeeze, but if you give it a really hard squeeze, what's going to happen is that all the sediment is going to come out of the bag, and your jelly is going to be really cloudy. Won't taste any worse for wear, but it will be cloudy. So I'm going to pour this liquid, and there's 4 cups, and I might get another one out of here, into the pan. Take out my scoop there. Turn the burner on high, and what I am trying to do is bring this up to a full rolling boil, but not before I add the Sure-Jell. I'm going to add the Sure-Jell first. And Sure-Jell comes in a box. It's also pectin. You could do it the old-fashioned way and use a candy thermometer and bring it up to temperature, but most people don't have the time for that these days. And so I'm going to add the Sure-Jell pectin in, and again I have exactly the right amount measured for the amount of grape juice that I have, or I will have to bring it up to the amount by adding lemon juice or water or some other kind of juice. And I need 5 cups, and so far I only have a little over 4 for the second batch. So I'll add a little bit of something. You stir this in until it's dissolved, and then with your burner on high, you need to bring it up to a full rolling boil to add the sugar. So let's look at this over here. We do not have an extra full cup of juice. So how am I going to deal with that? I'm going to add some water. And a little bit of lemon juice. Now, if I had fresh lemon juice, I'd add fresh lemon juice. But I'm going to add just a little bit of lemon juice to bring it up to exactly 1 cup and add the 5th cup. So, my lids are over here soaking in boiling water. And my jars will also go into the boiling water. And when I'm working, I keep a pot of water boiling on the stove the entire time because you never know when you might need it. You can anticipate that you're going to have a certain number of jars, but making jelly is not an exact science. So be flexible. These are really sweet little jars, and a lot of us used to see these containers, and our grandmothers would put jelly in here and pour paraffin on the top. This little glass is also a vintage jelly jar, but the rings, even the big ones, won't fit on top of it. So I don't use these unless I'm giving somebody the jelly immediately, like a neighbor or a friend to eat, because they know it's coming. So I'm going to bring this juice with the pectin in it up to a full rolling boil. This is my grandmother's wooden spoon. I've always used it for making jelly. And I don't wash the pan between batches because I don't see any point. I see absolutely no point to that. So I'm going to clear a space while we're waiting for that to come to a boil. And I have my sugar all measured out and ready to go. Because once it hits a full rolling boil, I'm going to pull it off the burner, add the sugar, and bringing it up to another full rolling boil that I can't stir down and let it cook for 1 minute. And then I'm ready to put it in the jars. But while I'm waiting for that to happen, I'm going to show you where we left off with the parsley. The parsley is dry, and so it still stays this wonderful, vibrant, bright green color, which is why I like to use the food dryer. So I just take a cookie sheet with edges or a cake pan and put a piece of tin foil or a piece of brown paper bag or a piece of parchment paper, and I'm going to just take the parsley and crumble it between my fingers. Strip it off of the leaves and crumble it between my fingers. If you turn off the dryer and there's been a lot of moisture in the air, you're going to have to turn the dryer back on to get this crisp before you try and work with it. So all I'm going to do is take this parsley and roll it between my hands and strip out all the big pieces, all the stems. I don't like any stems in mine. Strip it all off the stems. These will go into the compost. And then when I get to just the parsley, I just use my hands and go like this until I get all the little stems off it. Then I will put it in a glass jar with a lid. I don't can it, I don't freeze it, I don't do anything to it. I just make sure the jar and the lid are clean, and I store the parsley in a clean jar, or I put a label on it. And some of your canning jars come with labels. Here's, for example, a set of labels that came with one of my sets of canning jars. Make sure you label and put the year on everything that you make. So if you've given somebody multiples of something, they can use up the oldest first. The other thing that I like to do is I like to use decorative lids on my jelly. If you can find them, they often come in Christmas. This is a Christmas one. This is a gingham one. They just make it really pretty. But I will show you how to dress these up next time. So I'm going to keep on making the jelly here. The jelly is just about to come to a full rolling boil. It's coming. You can't rush jelly. You have to make it and follow the directions precisely. Now, what do you do if your jelly doesn't gel? There are directions on the label here of exactly what to do if your jelly doesn't gel. You can take it all out of the jars, follow these directions and start over. It involves mixing pectin with water and adding it to the mix.